evening. Welcome to the Board of Adjustment meeting, whatever day it is. Today is July 24th, 2019. Let's begin with our roll call, please. Ms. Yothers?
Chairman Elliott,
Here.
Mr. Rabowski,
Here.
Mr. Burris,
Here.
Mr. Eisner,
Here.
Ms. Turner, Ms. Rich.
Here.
Thank you. Let's now hear from our legal counsel on the quasi-judicial procedures.
This is a quasi-judicial proceeding where the Board of Adjustment acts in a quasi-judicial rather than a legislative capacity. At a quasi-judicial hearing, it is not the board's function to make law, but rather to apply law that has already been established. In a quasi-judicial hearing, the board is required by law to make findings of fact based on the evidence presented at the hearing and apply those findings of fact to previously established criteria contained in the Code of Ordinances in order to make a legal decision regarding the application before it. The board may only consider evidence at this hearing that the law considers competent, substantial, and relevant to the issues. If the competent, substantial, and relevant evidence at the hearing demonstrates that the applicant has met the criteria established in the Code of Ordinance, then the board is required by law to find in favor of the applicant. By the same token, if the competent, substantial, and relevant evidence at the hearing demonstrates that the applicant has failed to meet the criteria established in the Code of Ordinance, then the board is required by law to find against the applicant. Are there any members of the board wishing to disclose any ex parte communications or conflicts of interest this evening? Seeing none, anyone wishing to speak this evening, if you could please stand and raise your right hand to be sworn in. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So sworn.
Thank you. Let's all silence our gadgets, please. And when you get up to the podium, if you would state your name and your address. We have two items on the agenda. One is a sidewalk waiver request on Seabreeze Drive and Riverside. The other one is a rear yard setback request on Hamilton Avenue, just off Riverside Drive as well. Are we okay with proceeding in the order on the agenda? Anybody have to leave early? Should be pretty quick, but okay. All right, let's begin with item 19-67, Gialusis, waiver of the sidewalk location, 1445 Riverside Drive. Tricia?
And this is a request for waiver of the requirement to build a sidewalk in conjunction with a single-family residence that has been, the building permit has been applied for, and the applicant is required to install sidewalks along all abutting street rights of way. Riverside Drive has a sidewalk. Seabreeze Drive on the north side does not have a sidewalk, and the applicant is requesting a waiver of the requirement to build that Seabreeze Drive sidewalk. With respect to your criteria, the first one under section 13201B, basically there is a drainage ditch in the area where the sidewalk would have to go. This ditch basically starts on the applicant's property, as you can see on the survey, and continues on all the way down the length of that side into the right-of-way, and there is a retaining wall on the adjacent property to the west that is basically a retaining wall for the adjacent subdivision, and the drainage infrastructure continues along there. This drainage area would make the installation of a sidewalk very, very difficult. So there are physical conditions associated with this right-of-way, especially on the south side of Seabreeze Drive, that make this sidewalk installation difficult. With respect to number two, these special circumstances have not been self-created or resulted from an action by the applicant. With respect to the four criteria, one or more of which you may consider if they are met. With respect to number one, the right-of-way width is basically pretty standard, but Seabreeze Drive on the south side is occupied by this drainage structure. We would note that there is a sidewalk on the north side with more of a typical right-of-way layout and room for a sidewalk in this area. With respect to number 2, Seabreeze Drive is improved and paved. With respect to number 3, the drainage ditch would make the sidewalk installation difficult, especially given the need to maintain the drainage infrastructure over time. And with respect to item 4, there is an existing sidewalk on the north side of Seabreeze Drive. There is no sidewalk on the south side, and the homes that abut the south side of Seabreeze Drive, west of this home, all orient away from Seabreeze Drive. So this is their backyard. When they were built, they were not required to put that improvement in. So they would not really be served by the sidewalk. So that's just the condition of the area. This was publicly noticed, and staff did not receive any responses to the notices. And the findings of fact kind of reiterate the analysis I just went through, and staff is recommending approval of the requested waiver from the sidewalk requirements of Section 132.00 of the Land Development Code for Seabreeze Drive.
Thank you. Is the applicant here wish to make a statement? You're welcome to say anything if you like. Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, anybody in the audience wish to speak on this item? Yes, ma'am, please. You want to come forward?
And ma'am, I don't believe, did you raise your hand to be sworn in before?
No.
Okay. Do you swear affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
My name is Peggy Kern. I live at 1028 Marshview Lane, Tarpon Springs. I really have no opinion either way, but before consideration, I'm familiar with that drainage ditch that runs parallel on Seabreeze. There's a similar drainage ditch on Riverside in front of the Sunset Apartments, which the city maintains and improved. So the drainage ditch on the Seabreeze side that we're discussing really hasn't had any improvement. And I don't think anyone has ever looked at it for improvement, the same as they did on Sunset Drive. So that area has a lot more water usually in it than the other ones. The other issue about you can use the sidewalk, it's true, on the other side of the street, but there are a lot still left to be built. One lot, I think, that would face Seabreeze in Point Alexis in the Homeowners Association. So when the committee is saying that the corner doesn't need the sidewalk, will that apply when the lot is sold for the last house on Seabreeze? So then that I'm just saying, I don't know how fair that is, or whether those considerations as to whether the city should maintain the drainage on Seabreeze the same way they maintain on Riverside. Just for consideration for the board.
Thank you very much. Okay, are ready for questions from the board? Comments?
Question. I have a question of staff. It says here the Board of Adjustment shall not consider the presence of other sidewalks in the neighborhood as justification to grant the waiver. And I can understand that in the aspect of, let's say there is an empty lot, or there was a house that was built and no sidewalk was necessary, or it was built prior to. But on a street such as Seabreeze, where there's never going to be built, and it is the backside of properties, why would we not consider that?
Well, I think that's just getting at that cannot be a basis. In other words, if you we're not meeting any of these, but that one, that cannot be a basis for granting the waiver. So I think the idea here is that you can't say, well, there aren't any sidewalks in the neighborhood yet, so why should this person put one in? Or there are existing houses with no sidewalks, why should this person put one in? In this case, we have the corner lot, and then we have houses to the west that don't orient toward the street. So we kind of intuitively know why there's no sidewalk there. But I don't know that this is written with this case in mind. That's
Well,
what I would say.
That's where I'm going with, same
Yeah,
thing.
I mean,
I'm in
even
agreement.
an existing house that does an addition, they would have to come in and put a sidewalk. So the idea is that you would not be able to assume that there will never be sidewalks on the rest of the street. That's the way I kind of look at this. It's pretty strictly worded, shall not consider, but I'm not sure it contemplates this kind of a situation.
Okay.
I have a question also. On Seabridge, which side has sidewalk?
The north side.
The north side.
So, yeah, if you're looking at the, like on the page 6 and page 7 of the staff report, where you see it says Tract H drainage easement, that side of Seabreeze Drive, you'll
Yes.
see it. You can kind of see it on the aerial photograph on page 7, that there's a sidewalk there.
So there's no need to have a sidewalk on the other side. Isn't that the idea? Which is the side of the drainage ditch.
That, as far as the need for a sidewalk, that is one criteria. Staff is recommending approval of this waiver based on the topographic conditions, the drainage in the right-of-way, so the physical limitations that are there for building a sidewalk, not really the need. We do have lots of streets with sidewalks on both sides, so that would be something, if you want to make that finding, you could. But staff is primarily focused on the difficulty of building the sidewalk in this particular right-of-way.
Is it as much a difficulty? Is it that the fact that we have precedents in this town where we have a sidewalk in a corner for that particular property and it doesn't go anywhere on either side? And it looks like an aberration, like Sunset Drive and Riverside Drive. So there's no need for this to be built. Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other comments from the board? Does the applicant wish to make any comments after hearing the questions from the board at all? You're welcome. No. We ready for a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
I'll second. Oh, sorry. You can have the second one. Okay.
Okay, a motion by Mr. Boris, second by Mr. Hrabowski. Discussion on the motion? Joanne, you have any comments?
Self-explanatory.
I'm all in favor of sidewalks myself, but one is enough in many instances, and there's already one there, and it's silly to build one house with a sidewalk, like George mentioned, that goes nowhere. The city wants sidewalks, they can build it of the entire length of the block at one time. I live on Riverside Drive, it's got one sidewalk on one side, a lot of pedestrians, and it's wonderful, and nothing on the other side, and we're happy with that, so I think that I agree with the motion, I recommend approval. So, we ready for a vote then?
Ms. Rich?
Approve.
Mr. Eisner?
Yes.
Mr. Burris?
Yes.
Mr. Hrabowski?
Yes.
Mr. Elliott?
Yes. Okay, thank you. The next item is 19-71, Ordonez. It's a variance to reduce a required rear yard setback at 1034 Hamilton Avenue. Can we have a staff report, please?
And this is a variance to reduce the required rear yard setback to allow for the addition of a screened porch onto an existing single-family residence. The required rear yard setback, this is in the R100 zoning district, single-family residential. The required setback is 30 feet. The applicant would like to add, the applicant has an existing enclosed porch on the back of the residence that is set back almost 32 feet from the rear property line. And the applicant wishes to add a screened porch resulting in a rear yard setback of nearly, well, let's see what I got here. Yeah, 23.75 feet. The applicant is requesting a 23-foot setback in the application to accommodate this screened porch addition. This is a lot, conforming lot in the R100 zoning district, and the structures on site also conform to the existing code with respect to setbacks. With respect to the criteria, the home is set back 25 feet, which is basically 25 feet, the district minimum, and the applicant already has an existing enclosed porch that is well within the limits of the rear yard setback. It appears that the property could accommodate an expansion or extension of that existing porch to the north without violating any of the required minimum district setbacks. The applicant has not presented thus far any physical conditions, and staff did not note any physical conditions unique to the lot that would limit the applicant's ability to add a screen porch that is in compliance with the code. So it's concluded under number 2, there are no special circumstances or conditions associated with the lot. Number 3, literal enforcement would not deny the applicant reasonable use of the property. They do have an existing porch and could add to that, so the use of a porch is there without violating the minimum setbacks. Number 4, granting this variance would confer special privileges to the applicant by allowing that encroachment into the rear yard that is not available to other residents in the R100 district. And with respect to number 5, it's not concluded that this porch addition would substantially diminish property values. May have a modest impact on the rear neighbor, but that criteria is actually met. This application was properly noticed, and staff has not received any responses to the notices. And the findings reiterate the analysis just relayed, and staff is recommending denial of a variance for relief from the required rear yard setback for this application.
Okay, thank you. Is the applicant here? Please come forward, sir.
Good evening. My name is Serafin Ordonez. Can you hear me now? My name is Serafin Ordonez. I live at 1034 Hamilton Avenue, Tarpon Springs, Florida. One thing that I forgot that I didn't provide to Pam was photos that I have here of my backyard. The reason why I want the setback is, yes, I can build to the north, which is, I got these photos here, if you can pass them around. It's a sunroom that's got a bank of windows. There's an air conditioning unit that's on the north side of that, and for that reason I requested the variance, because I would have to move that AC unit either to the back or to the other side.
Anything else, sir?
That's it.
All right, questions of the staff, first of all? Anybody?
I just want a clarification. This paper was written on and changed, it was 27 changed to 23?
Yeah, okay, so let me get, that was in the application. Yes, Mr. Ordonez and I sat down and discussed this, And I wanted to be sure that he asked for the variance that he needed to build the porch that he wanted. When we measured everything out with the 8-foot wide porch, 27 feet was not going to be enough. It would end up being 23.75 feet from the rear property line.
Okay,
He's
so it's-
asking for 23 just in case he's a little off. The house is not exactly square with the lot. It's a little bit skewed, which is in the staff report. So we did change that when we were
Yes, we did.
in the office, and he kind of initialed it, but you can't really see it.
Thank you.
Can I ask you a question? May I, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
What is the cost of changing the air conditioning unit to the other side?
I have not priced that out. The whole duct, the outside unit, which is basically the compressor, would have to be changed, so you would have to add the line, the Freon lines, to wherever it is that I move it. I would have to open up the ceiling in that room to accommodate those lines. Right now, the way it's on that picture, they go up the wall, through the wall, and the unit, which is a European unit, it's right on the other side.
The porch that you're planning to build, the additional one, is it gonna be similar to the one that you have?
No, sir. It's gonna be totally screened in with a aluminum roof, insulated roof on it, so we can put our barbecue back there, have a table back there, basically so we could enjoy the yard in the summer, don't worry about the mosquitoes.
So it's gonna have a concrete footprint and it's gonna be screened all around.
Yes, sir.
I see. Thank you.
May I? Sure. I do want to clarify a couple of things. First of all, thank you for coming in and bringing us all this, and the photo was helpful. But before we could make a opinion on something, it has to be a proof of findings of fact. And as I at least look through the criteria that are here on number 1, 2, 3, and 4, I have to consider, I look through it and I see what you've written and what you need, and I have to put an X next to all of those 4. And the only one that I can give a check mark to is the 5th criteria. So in order for, at least for myself, to agree with you, I'd love to give you, just say yes. But we are held by law of doing a findings of fact. And I just, from what you're explaining to me, the changing of the air conditioner would not be a good enough reason to change any one of those 4. So is there anything else that you can add that would at least persuade me? I can't speak for the other 4 members. We will take a vote separately, but that's at least what I'm looking at right now.
That's the only thing, is that air conditioner. Because once I put in the slab, I'll grade the yard away from the existing porch right now. When it rains, that area floods, so I have to drain it away. So I would have to grade it backwards or back away from the house.
Mm.
I have another question. Yes. Since the addition is going to be screened and it's going to have a concrete floor, why can't the AC stay there? And since you're planning to just have a barbecue or something like that, and leave it where it's at?
You mean build
Yeah, it's going to have the air that it needs.
build
gonna-
around it?
Leave it within the addition if you put it on the north side.
Or if I put it on the north side?
Yes.
Okay, I understand
So
what
in
you're
other
saying.
words, leave the air conditioning where it's at.
And just
Do what
screen
you're
around
gonna
it.
have to do and leave it in there. Since you're gonna put a barbecue in there, just put a door, whatever you need it, and leave it alone.
Okay,
That's probably the most logical solution that you're gonna have.
I understand.
And it's not gonna cost you any movement or anything like that. Plus, it's gonna look better for the house. It's gonna be closer to the house, and it's not gonna be an addition to an addition.
Correct.
That's my opinion. Unless you wanna revise it, I don't know, how the planning board will do it, but can we give him or he has to reapply again and spend another $250?
It would
No,
be
would-
within the footprint. though.
Yeah, I don't
That's gonna be
necessarily
within
think that
the
he would
footprint.
need a variance if he was. I
Okay,
think the
then you're gonna be
suggestion
within the
was-
footprint, you don't need anything.
Yeah, in the statement, it says that if he did it to the north, he wouldn't need a variance.
Then that's it.
Okay,
Sold.
sounds good.
We have to deny it, then you can do what you need to do,
I understand.
all right?
Thank
So I'll
you.
make a motion to deny it.
I'll
Wait,
second.
wait. First of all, y'all gotta let the chairman call for a motion, but also we need to go to public
Okay.
comment for.
All right.
Y'all are getting ahead of yourselves. I appreciate the enthusiasm.
Any other questions from the board? Any comments from the public, for or against? Okay, are we ready for a motion?
Make a motion to deny.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Boris, second by Ms. Rich to deny the variance. Discussion?
Would you like me to say what I said earlier again?
Two, you're
No,
welcome.
no, I'm fine.
Okay, then let's have a roll call, please.
Ms.
Young.
Rich,
Approve the motion to deny.
Mr. Eisner,
I approve the motion to deny.
Mr. Burris,
Yes.
Mr. Grabowski,
Yes,
Mr. Elliott.
Yes, thank you, sir, for doing
Thank
a
you.
very good job, and we have a solution for you. It looks like you're
Thank you.
satisfied with that.
Mind if we keep those, just the pictures? Yeah. If you could just hand them to Ms. Yellers at the end of the. Thank you very much.
Next item, approval of our minutes of June 26. Any comments? Another fine job, I think. Motion to approve? Is there a motion?
I'll motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Yep.
Aye.
Okay, the next item is a continued discussion of our rules of procedure. Start with Ms. Rich. Any comments about that?
I did look at it, and just as you said, it was probably written prior to the email additions. It might have been also written prior to when you had alternates. So you might want to say, we've been operating under the practice that if an alternate is here not seated, that they would still have voice, just not vote. And you might want to put that in there, just for clarity for future alternates. Tonight I'm seated, so I have vote, but just one of those things for our records. It might be covered elsewhere in other city something, how alternates are, the status, I don't know.
Very good point, thank you. Anything else?
No.
Mr. Burris, any
No,
comment?
nothing additional.
Grabowski?
I just go back to using technology to actually see the property.
Speak in the microphone, please.
No, I go back to using technology to actually see the property, either Google Earth or some other electronic means, better than these pieces of paper that we get, to actually see what we're discussing. I don't know if you want to add that in some form or fashion. Similar to,
Kim, you're making notes of this, right? Right.
Is
I mean,
that-
it's similar to a personal inspection. I mean, making a trip to the thing is allowed. So we're allowed to visit the property and see it firsthand, but for some reason, not necessarily allowed to look at it electronically from here. So I don't see much difference there. I don't know if you want to put that in writing in some form or fashion, that we can actually do that. That would be,
That's not really a rule of procedure.
well, inspections is, and that would be a form of inspecting the property.
Well, an inspection is something that you do, one, you've been advised against doing, but obviously it is allowed. But that you would do on your own, not as a board, because you can't go inspect as a board. So I guess I would like a clarification for legal reasons. Are you talking about, like the surveys and stuff that we get, or the overhead, that you just like to see it bigger and like on a projector, or if,
Right, to actually have the ability to look at, like on Google Earth, you can zoom in and look at the property. You can see exactly what's going on. They,
Oh.
So that's what I'm talking about.
Not necessarily, depends on the date of the aerial, but
Right, yeah, there's gonna be some variation.
Right.
They're not perfect, but it's certainly better than just trying to, you know, go by the
obviously,
paper.
you guys, your rules of procedure are yours to change. I would just caution that, you know, the burden is on the applicant to make their presentation, and then staff to make their report as well. Independent research is not to be done at all, and that's there's case law on that. So for purposes of looking at the packet materials and making it bigger so that you can see it, I don't think that there's a problem with you coming in with, you know, like I have my laptop and zooming in on the agenda packet materials to see better. But doing independent research through Google Maps or, you know, some sort of interactive map that hasn't otherwise been provided by staff or the applicant, I would discourage that.
Suppose the applicants and the city agreed that we could look at Google Earth while we're at the hearing, and they stipulate that there's no objection.
I mean, then in that case, then I think the applicant has the burden of bringing in that as part of their presentation, as part of their evidence. So, you know, I don't think that you can sit there and say, oh, you stipulate that we're just going to pull it up right now, because you're still doing the research and the evidence. It's their burden to present that. Now, if you want to say to the staff, you know, we'd really like a printout of the Google Earth, you know, put in the staff report, and they want to do that because they are the ones that are presenting the staff report, they can do that, and then you can zoom in on it, you know, on the computer or on a projector.
You want to zoom in?
Can I?
Sure.
Yes. Tonight we had this last case where the gentleman brought the pictures in and were able to resolve it because we saw what was going on. When the applicant makes the application, can the city require pictures
I mean, the
of
city,
the, whatever they're planning to do?
Mm.
That's not an additional burden to the applicant.
well, it could be. You know, but here's the other thing too, is there's nothing that requires the applicant to submit pictures or a site plan or whatever. The burden is on the applicant to,
True, but if they don't know about it, so they're in dark.
well, you know, they've been in contact with staff before they ever make it here.
If the staff remembers it. No, you see my point. If
I
it's,
don't.
As a side note to the applicant, if you bring pictures, it may be easier to decide your case.
But I agree. I'd like to see, if the building is not built yet, which is often the case,
Then we'll go by the plan.
then they can present a rendering. You know, like,
A rendering might cost a lot of money.
but that's up to the applicants, but I would like to see what it's gonna look like if it's done the way they're proposing it to be done. And it's, as the city attorney's office has said, it's their burden to do that. But I think Mr. Burris and I concur that it'd be nice to notify the applicants in the application process, to try to present something visual that we can see what it looks like now or what it will look like.
And I think that's a good comment that maybe staff can take back, and they can work that into amending the actual application for a variance to have some of that in there. But as far as your rules of procedure are concerned, that wouldn't be something that would be appropriate for that.
Well, whichever way we can accommodate the citizen, that's the bottom line.
Yes, and I will say, if staff may be recognized, we have it runs the gamut. So we have people that just submit an application and we've never met with them. Sometimes I'll follow up with them. And then we have other applicants. We've had actually both of these tonight where we've talked with them, sat with them a couple of times, and we explain, here are the standards. Is there any physical condition? Now, this last one, I did not know about the air conditioner. What we can do is revise our application so it says a site plan. We could say, in addition to, please provide a narrative of your hardship, please provide any evidence, for example, pictures. If pictures will help, they may not always. You know, we could revise the list and try to guide them better. But it's difficult, I think, for some applicants to understand the hardship part, so we do our best to explain it.
Yes. Can these applications be made online, or they have to come physically here and make them?
The application is available online, but they can mail it in with the fee.
Then in that case, you will agree that if there is a not on the application itself, whether it's online or it's physically when the citizen comes here to fill it up, then at that point, if you have a note there, whether it's in red letters, blue, whatever it is, City of Tarpon Springs letters, if it will be advantageous to them, some to that effect, that pictures will help the case.
Yeah,
Mhm.
she said she would change the application.
Yeah, that's what,
The electronic part I was worried about.
well, we can certainly change the application form, and obviously when we talk to applicants and tell them pictures, surveys, elevations, there are lots of things they could submit that might help you. I mean,
Is that okay with you, Mr.
Um,
Hrabowski?
That'll do.
I have a question of staff,
Alright.
if, you know,
Are,
one,
are we finished with this item about the visuals? Are you okay? You understand? You could,
Sure.
but you still want to be able to use Google Earth to,
It would be nice.
and is that, if everybody agrees, you're saying he still cannot do that?
Well, first of all, that's not a procedure.
But, yeah, we're talking about
procedure
evidence,
of the
but in
board.
general, but
Um,
it's a little off the item for the discussion, but can you do that? If
Mm.
everybody says okay?
Let me do this. Let me go back and do some research to see if there's any corresponding or analogous law on that. My inclination is no, but I'm going to
Thank
go
you.
ahead and
Okay,
research
thank
it and
you.
get back to you guys.
It seems so similar to an inspection.
I
Well,
think the
case
city
law is
commissioners
split on
do
that
that
too.
too. They have their
Mm,
laptops in front of them.
Not in their
Okay,
quasi-judicial
Mr.
proceeding.
Eisner.
I have a question of staff. The last gentleman, Mr. Ordenis, was he explained prior to the application that he has to do findings of fact of all 5 criteria?
yes, we went through all of them.
Does he
I-
show you his evidence before? Because what I feel bad is,
Yeah.
here's a person coming in, he has no evidence,
Mhm.
he has no case, and he's just taken $250 and donated it to Tarpon Springs and wastes everyone's time, including his own. So I'm just curious, at what point do you sit there and say, this is do you tell them that it's a denial?
We will tell them that staff can or cannot support the application. Usually when they come in, sometimes I have to go through the application, look, do the research to write the staff report, and sometimes I notify him at that point. So he knew that he was going to get a staff report that did not support his request. I'm not sure we should be talking back about this case, but my feeling, I'll just tell you, when he was there, was he wanted to give it a shot. That's kind of my feeling with him. Actually, we talked through a redesign of it that would comply with the code, but he wanted to try this first. And at some point, I have to stop. He is due process is available to him, and I have to let him go through the process if he wants to do it.
Okay,
Yeah, and that was the case with this gentleman.
just asking
I
a question.
I know.
yeah.
I felt
You know,
the
if-
same way
if-
you do about this one.
If he's got 3 out of the 5, if he's got 4 out of the 5, I could understand bringing the case to us. But when you have a total losing case,
Still
It
has
just-
the right to bring it in.
I understand about the right. It's about the loss of money and time, and to me it's a waste. But
Not for us
okay,
to decide.
no, I know.
Okay. I don't have anything, believe it or not. So maybe in a couple of months, we will start to finalize any amendments, Ms. Rich?
Just a question, Sir Chair. On page 3, the order of hearings that's printed here, is this, it seems similar to what we have been, I know you mentioned at a previous meeting that you were, hoping for a certain flow. What in here is not in the order, or is this the order that we're going to continue? Because when I just read it, I was like, this seems good. but
this-
then I remembered you saying you wanted to change, then I couldn't remember. Is there something on here that you
Before I
wanted to
got
change?
on the board, what they would do is have cross-examination and questions. intermittently between the staff report and the applicant. And we all agree it'd be better to have the staff report, then the applicant, then we open it up to a free-for-all and have questions, first of the staff. So that's gonna be clarified in the final review, I think. Okay? Set? Ready for a motion to adjourn? Oh, I'm sorry, staff comments?
No comments this evening.
Board comments?
We covered that, didn't we?
No, not yet. Okay, any more board comments? Okay, the meeting is adjourned at 7:40. Come in the back, we welcome you, and I can't say anything about, you wanna say who, no, now or later?
Unless it's before.
Yeah, we're
public
adjourned.
comment.
I could unadjourn very easily.
He has
Can I
public
introduce-
comments before the board.
Can we,
But
Kim,
Heather was going to introduce him formally to the board.
okay, all right, let's
but-
wait next month, then. Okay, thank you. We wanna have a formal introduction and,
I mean, you can still introduce them, we're just
Tuxedos.
not in a meeting.
Yeah,
okay.
new city plan, John. So you guys can. go
Patricia,
back
you
and
wanna
meet him.
take over?
Sorry, I can't wave to you. I'm not allowed.
Why?
You
I'm just
recycle
joking.
this?
Legal counsel says it's fine.
New
on
staff,
the
new staff for
record.
the P
I'm
and
off
Z.
the record. I can't wave to you. All right, take my clown butt out of here.
It's like the Hall of Fame ceremony, we have to have a formal introduction.
Timber, I left you all these things.
Just a little shorter than last month, huh?
Yeah, which is good, unless you know how to innovate.
Good to have you here, Small.
Boy.
Okay, thank you very much. What about any orders?
There was no order last week because it was not really.
I left some unsigned.
I know, I'm still working on those. I have to figure, remember you.
Yeah, I threw something in there. I'll be gone for the next couple